Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a short video tonight. I've got some work to do in one of my other projects called Progeny, and I need to get finished. But I did want to kind of put together a quick video to show kind of, what I've been working on here. So this is the, I guess, Raven, or Strahd von Zaravich's mother's tomb, which is the lowest part of the dungeon. I put together just a kind of a walkthrough-y kind of area here. Now, these textures are, ugly. They're not great. But the purpose here is not to create the best looking model at this point. All I'm really trying to do here is get all of the geometry roughed out. I mentioned in the last video that my end goal here is to use Blender to do texturing and make this thing look really cool. But I am still, as you might notice, working in SketchUp, which is where I originally created this model. I did some cleanup last night and some over my lunch hour today, and basically cleaned up this first floor of the model map. I've added some basic placeholder textures because I was getting confused as to which walls are actually walls and which walls are going to go away and which walls are actually part of the castle stonework. And then I added in the spiral staircases just to rough those in where they're going to go. Now, why am I still using SketchUp when I have something so cool like Blender? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The most important one is that I am just super familiar with SketchUp. I've been using it for years and years and years, and I know it in and out, so I can rapidly build out a lot of rough geometry in here. But also, and possibly more importantly, SketchUp has some really nice tools for doing architectural style and mechanical style geometry. It's really more similar to something like SolidWorks than it is similar to something like Blender. And one of the neat tools in SketchUp that makes it so easy to work with is the tape measure tool. You can simply pick a line and then pick another perpendicular line and then type in, say, give me 10 feet, and it will make that line 10 feet out. Then I can pick this one up and do the same thing this way, and 10 feet. That didn't quite work, did it? Tape. There's 10 feet. Okay, so 10 feet by 10 feet, and we can get rid of this other line. And then you can use those as snapping points to, say, draw a 10 by 10 room, and then you could potentially say, I want this wall to be, 0.5 feet thick, and then we're going to use the extruder and then extrude that up, and boom, instant room. It's just really fast to work with for laying out things, especially something like an old style Dungeons and Dragons map, which are all kind of on a 10 by 10 cube. So anyway, what I am working on is trying to do all of the SketchUp geometry that I want to get done in SketchUp before I move over to Blender. And now the exterior geometry of the castle is pretty much set. Let's see, unhide that, and then unhide. Where did my, oh, there it is. Unhide. And unhide the terrain. So the actual castle geometry is pretty good. I mean, or as good as I can get it in SketchUp. There are a couple things I want to add. The upper murder holes, the arrow slots that go around the upper part of the tower. I need to add a little more thickness to the floor of the upper guard tower. There's a couple other little minor geometry tweaks I want to add, but for the most part, I'm happy with the outside of the castle, at least as much as can be done inside of SketchUp. I mean, once I get into Blender, I can start doing a lot more. But I also, as I mentioned in the last video, have a great deal of the inside that I would like to create for a walkthrough, either using Unreal Engine or Unity or one of those things. I want to make a castle that I can kind of fly through either with a VR camera or, in a game. So I wanted to go ahead and rough out the geometry of the inside. So the start of that is getting the first floor done. These spiral staircases I whipped together actually go from floor to floor. Now I've got this little placeholder geometry here, the circle with the crosshairs on it. That just let me line things up properly. Once I'm done, that will not be there. But the spiral staircases come up. So just like here, you will have a situation where you can kind of walk up and then continue walking up to the higher levels of the tower. You get up here to the witch's chambers, and then you can kind of go on up to the very high platform. Probably going to take me another couple of days to finish out, fixing the geometry on the flat planes of each floor, and then I'm going to start roughing in the walls, kind of like this. Where's the first floor structures and unhide? Boom. So I kind of roughed that out yesterday just to kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. And you can come into these rooms if I can maneuver around inside here. Well, you're not going to see much at this point. Once I get these geometries all the way I want them, I'll do another video. Ideally, I will do some videos in real time while I'm working, so you guys can see kind of how I use these tools and put these things together. In the long run, I might end up printing some of the inside as like a diorama for some of my old miniatures. That's why I couldn't see inside, because the second floor is still visible. But that's all hollow, so you can actually see inside these rooms. Each one of these rooms, when I'm done, is going to be its own separate piece of geometry so that I can detail it out and do, little set shots and things like that with it, as well as wire it all together into a level. There are a couple of issues I'm trying to solve. Some of the staircases on the original map do not quite line up right when they're stacked in 3D. For instance, a grand staircase that will go up here and then turn around and go onto a landing, and then it's supposed to go up these two separate staircases. However, it doesn't all quite fit together in 3D, so I'm going to have to do some cheating there to make it work properly. And then there's another staircase that is going off of the larder, which is over here. And if I remember correctly, it's going down here, and it doesn't quite line up with where it's supposed to be on the lower levels of the catacombs. Anyway, I'll sort all that out and get this thing all fired up. Anyway, I'll check back in either tomorrow or the next day and give you guys an update as to where I am with this. And over the weekend, I'll try to put together some real-time, fly-throughs of what I'm doing. Actually, just do some work and record it, and maybe speed it up and put some music to it or something, because I know watching me drag points and lines and stuff around is not exciting. However, some of you might want to create this kind of stuff for your own games, putting into a virtual tabletop or what have you. So you can create some nice looking maps just here in SketchUp. I mean, these aren't bad for virtual tabletop maps, but I think I can do a lot of cool stuff once I get this into Blender. So anyway, that's about all I have for tonight. If you're interested in me keeping this thing going, let me know. Send me a thumbs up, or send me a chat response or comment. Anyway, have a good night.